They burned her farm and took her bound into the night. Thought she had no one left. Thought silence meant surrender. But at midnight, a rifleman stepped from the dark, said just 5 words. Let her go, or burn. What followed weren't just bullets or justice. It was something older. A reckoning. And the story? Well, it ain't done yet. The wind carried the scent of smoke before anyone saw the fire. It whispered through brittle mesquite and over scorched dirt, curling down from the hills like a warning breathed by the land itself. Fence wire hummed. A lone crow circled high above the valley, drifting on a current it did not trust. And there, beneath it all, she stood, Eliza Granger, alone on the edge of her burned field, boots buried ankle-deep in ash, shotgun limp in one hand, eyes fixed on the rising glow to the west. The barn was already gone. The roof had collapsed in a shower of sparks hours ago. Flames still licked the beams, greedy and slow, lighting the darkness like a dying heartbeat. Her house, little more than a one-room cabin now, leaned to one side, its door hanging open like a torn mouth. She didn't move, didn't cry, just watched the trail beyond the ridge, because she knew they were coming back. A creak cut the silence, the slow groan of a saddle shifting under weight. A figure broke the ridgeline. One rider, shadowed, slouched in the saddle like a man used to hunting things that didn't want to be found. A wide-brimmed hat hit his eyes, but the rifle slung across his back caught the moonlight, silver and straight. Eliza didn't flinch. Not yet. Another rider appeared behind him, then 2 more, for in total, just like before. Same coats, same horses, same way of riding, slow and mean, like they owned the night. Eliza's grip on the shotgun tightened. Then she heard it, the sound that truly made her heart drop. Laughter, low and cruel, floating on the wind ahead of them. It wasn't the sound of men who'd made a mistake. It was the sound of men who were still hungry. The shotgun rose, steady now. A voice called out from the lead rider. Easy now, Miss Granger. Smooth, almost polite. We just came back to talk. She didn't answer. Her finger hovered near the trigger. The horses stopped 20 yards out, where the dust hadn't yet settled from the fire. The leader, tall, clean-shaven, with eyes like cold iron, lifted a hand and gestured to the others. They fanned out, loose and patient. I said we'd leave you your land. The man continued. That was fair. You said no. And now here we are. His boots hit the ground with a thud. He stepped forward, one hand resting on the revolver at his side, the other extended like a preacher offering peace. But things changed, you see. We were riding back through these hills and thought, maybe we were too hasty. Maybe we should have taken more time to talk through it proper. Behind him, one of the men laughed again, the youngest, with a scar through his lip. Eliza lowered the shotgun an inch, not out of fear, but calculation. She knew what they wanted, and she knew what she wouldn't give. Not again. The leader moved closer. You lost everything already, Eliza. Ain't much more to take. She looked past him, toward the burning barn, toward the broken porch where her father had once carved his initials into the rail, toward the spot under the cottonwood where her husband lay buried in dry dirt and worn prayers. Then take me, she said. The man blinked. Come again? Her voice was clear now, hard as saddle leather. You burned my farm, took the horses, killed the dog. Only thing left is me. So go on. Take me. Finish it. He chuckled, then smiled, mocking and slow. That's the spirit. The others moved in like coyotes scenting blood. She raised the shotgun again, but this time, click, empty. They'd counted on that. A second passed. Then 2. She was surrounded. Rough hands grabbed her arms, tore the weapon away. Someone spat near her boot. Another grabbed the locket around her neck, snapped it clean off. She didn't scream, didn't fight. Not yet. Bind her, the leader ordered. We'll ride out before sunrise. Let the fire take what's left. As they tied her wrists, the flames behind them cracked louder. A beam from the cabin collapsed in a bright shower of sparks. The cottonwood groaned and split. Above it all, the wind moaned again. Only this time, it wasn't just the wind. Somewhere beyond the ridge, far beyond the reach of fire or men's voices. A sharp, cold metallic click echoed across the canyon, like a prayer chambering itself into steel. None of the men heard it, but Eliza did, and for the first time that night, she closed her eyes and smiled. The trail wound narrow between canyon walls, rising like burnt bones from the earth. Moonlight cast long shadows. The hooves of 4 horses clopped soft on red dirt, muffled by dust. Eliza rode double behind the youngest outlaw, Rig, her wrist still bound, arms pulled taut around his waist. Every bump in the trail jarred her ribs. She said nothing, just listened. The men didn't speak much now. The fire behind them had sobered their tongues. Only Greeley, the tall one who'd spoken to her before, seemed at ease. He whistled under his breath, slow and tuneless. A snake song. They passed under an arch of stone, where crows roost silent. Rig shifted in the saddle, fidgety. His jacket stank of sweat and cheap whiskey. "You ever seen a woman like that fight?" he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "I mean, damn near took off Jeb's ear." "She's Granger stock," said the man riding rear, Cole, older, bald, scarred down the neck. "Those folk know how to survive on dirt." "Won't survive what's coming," Greeley said flat. They all chuckled, but it died fast. Eliza lowered her head, letting hair fall in her face. She didn't want them to see her eyes. Not yet. By dawn, they reached Dead Mule Gulch, a town left to sand and silence. Houses leaned inward like broken teeth. Signs dangled crooked. The sheriff's office had no door. Somewhere a bell rang, over and over again. Not from time. From the wind. No one had lived here in years. They made camp in what had once been a saloon. The floor creaked under their boots. Greeley kicked aside the dust and pulled up a plank, revealing a half-buried crate of old bottles. "Still good," he grinned, uncorking one with his knife. Eliza sat near the hearth, wrists raw. Her lip bled where Rig had cuffed her for trying to run. She'd earned it and more. A mistake, too early. She'd wait now. Wait and listen. "Why here?" Rig asked, eyeing the broken piano. "Because," Greeley said, swigging. "It ain't on any map worth knowing. And it's quiet." "You think that rifleman's still following us?" Greeley didn't answer, just looked at the doorway, then poured a shot and tossed it back. "He ain't just following," Cole said. "He's hunting. There's a difference." At dusk, Eliza sat alone on the porch, ankles bound now too. Her fingers picked slow at the knot, muscle memory from younger years. Her father had taught her knots, rabbit tie, double hitch, devil's braid. He used to say, "If you can tie a knot blindfolded in the rain, you'll live longer than most." She wasn't blindfolded, but it might as well have been raining. Inside, the men argued. Rig was yelling. Something about payment. Eastbound caravans. "She's worth a lot more alive than burned," he shouted. Cole cursed. Wood scraped. A bottle shattered. No one noticed the faint shimmer on the roof across the street. A glint moonlight on steel. Eliza looked up. Didn't move. Didn't blink. But she saw him. A silhouette in the bell tower. Still as stone. Wide hat. Long rifle. Watching. Night fell hard. They chained Eliza to the iron stove in the saloon, just in case. She sat quietly, listening to the crickets fall silent one by one. She counted the seconds between wind gusts. Heard boots pacing upstairs. Rig on watch. Cole snored near the bar. Greeley sat by the window, cleaning his pistol by lamplight. A sudden sound ting. Glass cracked. The lamp on the windowsill shattered, spilling oil. Fire leapt up the curtain. Greeley cursed and leapt to his feet. Another shot. The piano erupted, keys flying like teeth. Rig shouted from above. "He's here. I see him. Tower north roof." "Put her by the window." Greeley barked. Cole scrambled up, dragging Eliza by the chain, kicking aside chairs. He yanked her to her feet and shoved her into the firelight. "She's got your eye, don't he?" Greeley shouted out into the dark. "Well, come get her. One more move. I get her right here." Silence answered. Eliza's breath slowed. Heart pounded steady. Then, a voice. Low. Calm. From nowhere and everywhere. "Let her go." Greeley froze. "Or burn." The rifle cracked again. The lamp above the doorway exploded. The room filled with smoke and screams. Cole dropped to his knees. Rig ran down the stairs, half-dressed, clutching a revolver. "Where is he?" Rig screamed. "Where the hell is he?" "He's in the damn wind," Cole howled. The building trembled under the force of a third shot. This time, it hit the chain at Eliza's feet. Sparks flew. Metal split. She didn't wait. Eliza moved fast, ducked under the table, grabbed the broken bottle from earlier. Her fingers slipped on blood as she crawled across the floor toward Rig's boots. She jabbed upward. He screamed, more from surprise than pain, dropped his pistol. She caught it. The world paused. Eliza rose slowly from behind the bar, pistol shaking in both hands. Smoke curled around her like mist off a grave. Cole turned first, gun half raised. Bang! He fell. Greeley dove behind the bar, cursing. Rig scrambled out the door, clutching his side. Then silence. Real silence. Only the creak of fire on the old beams. A breath of wind curling through the shattered window. Eliza stood alone. Bloodied. Smoked. Alive. She stepped over the bodies and out into the open. The street was empty, but she felt him watching. And this time, she wasn't afraid. Far above, in the bell tower, the rifleman lowered his weapon. The storm hadn't broken yet, but it was coming. He could feel it in his bones. By morning, the saloon was just bones. Ash drifted through the empty frame where the roof had been. Buzzards circled overhead. Eliza stood in the doorway, Rig's pistol tucked into her waistband, her wrists still red with rope burn. She hadn't seen the rifleman. Not clearly, but she knew. He wasn't a ghost. He wasn't a savior. He was real, and for some reason, he kept showing up when the sky turned black. She walked into the empty street, boots crunching over char and glass. Nothing moved, until a cough rasped behind her. Rig, half alive, half dragged, lying behind the blacksmith shop with his shirt torn and a strip of belt cinched around his leg. She stepped to him, slow. He flinched at the sight of her. "I didn't," he started, trying to lift a hand. "I wasn't like the others. I didn't touch you. I didn't." Eliza said nothing. Her shadow fell across his face. "You want me dead?" he asked, voice quaking. "No." She knelt beside him. "I want you to ride." "What?" "To the nearest marshal's outpost. There's one in Dry Hollow, 2 days east. Tell them what you did. What they did. Everything." He laughed. Bitter. "You think I'm going to hang myself?" She leaned close. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "If you don't, he'll find you again." Rig's eyes widened. Eliza stood, turned, and left him there, alone in the dust. By noon, she'd reached the canyon trail, an old mining route carved between 2 cliffs, all red rock and narrow passes. She didn't look back, just walked. Her ribs ached, her mouth tasted of smoke, but she kept going, because something had shifted. She no longer felt like prey. At sundown, the shadows moved. She was halfway across a rope bridge, strung between 2 jagged outcrops, when she saw it movement. Too fast, too deliberate. An ambush. Gunfire cracked. The rope behind her snapped. Eliza dove forward as the bridge collapsed in a scream of wind and splinters. She hit hard on the far ledge, rolling through gravel, pistol drawn. Shouts rose from the other side. 3 men. Not Greeley's crew. These ones were different, dusty uniforms, faded red kerchiefs. Ex-militia, maybe. Bounty hunters. One shouted, "That's her. Granger's girl." Another raised a rifle. "She's worth 200 to the Kincaid Ranch." Eliza fired first, missed wide. They returned. A bullet clipped the rock by her head. She scrambled behind a boulder, breath ragged. 1 shot left in the chamber. The voices were closing in. Then, a scream. Short, wet, final. Then silence. Eliza peeked over the stone. All 3 men lay still. One had a bullet clean through his throat. The other 2 hadn't even reached their guns. And there he was, the rifleman, standing 10 paces behind them, muzzle smoking, face shadowed by dusk. He didn't speak, didn't nod, just turned and walked away, vanishing into the cliffside like smoke into wind. Eliza sat down hard on the gravel, pistol still clenched. She should have run, should have shouted after him, demanded answers. But something held her back. She wasn't ready to know. Not yet. That night, she found shelter beneath an outcrop, a dry cave. She built a fire from brushwood, watched the flames curl, and thought. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her shoulder throbbed. She didn't know where she'd go next. But she was still alive. Because of him. The man who never spoke. Why? Why her? Why now? She closed her eyes. Let the questions drift. Let the fire talk instead. Then footsteps. Slow. Measured. She opened her eyes. He stood at the cave mouth. No rifle this time. Just him. A tall, quiet shadow framed in starlight. Eliza didn't move. He stepped forward, sat near the fire without a word. Closed now. She could see the wear on him. Scars across his knuckles, dust crusted in the seams of his coat, a tired set to his jaw like he hadn't slept in a week. But his eyes, they weren't cold. They were watchful, heavy with stories he hadn't told in years. He reached into his coat, pulled something out, a folded piece of paper. He handed it to her. Eliza opened it. It was a sketch, pencil on rough parchment. A woman, drawn soft and careful, hair in a braid, laughing. She looked like Eliza, but she wasn't. The man stared into the fire, still silent. Eliza felt something shift in her chest. "She was yours?" she asked. A slow nod. "She gone?" A slower one. Eliza held the paper gently, like it might burn. "I'm not her," she said. The man's jaw clenched. Then he spoke. First time she'd ever heard his voice. "I know." 2 words, dry as riverbed stone, and filled with more grief than she could carry. Eliza stared into the fire, the sketch pressed to her chest, then asked softly, "Why do you keep saving me?" He looked up and said nothing, but his eyes held an answer, something she wasn't ready to name, something that lived between guilt and hope. She looked away before the tears came. He stood, slowly, like it hurt to do so, then turned silent again and walked back into the dark. She didn't stop him, didn't call out, but her heart followed. In the silence that followed, the fire crackled soft, and something in her changed. Not broken, not healed, but changed. The desert had no memory for what it swallowed. Days passed. The canyon trail gave way to flatlands. Charred sagebrush, burned out homesteads, fence posts leaning like tired soldiers. Eliza walked with the pistol at her side and the rifleman's drawing folded in her satchel. She didn't speak to strangers, didn't stop long in towns, just passed through, silent and dusty. Folks gave her glances, half sympathy, half suspicion. They didn't ask where she came from. They never do when you smell like ash. She wasn't looking for safety. She was looking for names. Not revenge, not exactly, but something close. In the trading post at Cold Switch, she found the first one. A newspaper pinned to the wall, yellowed and torn. A small headline. Kincaid Holdings expand south. New claims filed near Granger Ridge. Kincaid. She remembered the name from the bounty hunters on the bridge. A cattle baron turned land merchant. Bought up half the frontier after the war. Rumor was, if your ranch sat on water, he either owned it, or he would. And if you didn't sell, you disappeared. She stood staring at the clipping until the shopkeep asked if she needed anything. "Elk jerky," she said, "and a pencil." She slept under stars and wrote the names she could remember. Greeley dead. Cole dead. Rigg, maybe still breathing. Kincaid not yet. She added another. Eliza Granger unknown. Not dead. Not alive. Something in between. She came upon a burned wagon near Salt Hook Crossing. No bodies, but the wheels were still warm. A sack of grain spilled across the sand like an offering. Nearby, someone had scratched into a rock with a blade. They took Anna. Said she's payment. That night, Eliza dreamed of fire again. But this time, she didn't wake up screaming. She woke up cold and decided she was done running. In a lonely cabin outside Bitter Wash, a man with no teeth told her what she needed. Kincaid's holding a land meeting in Sundown Fork. 3 days' ride. Bringing in ranch heads from 5 counties. Show of power. That sort of thing. You going? He spat. Ain't got no land to defend. But if you're looking to stir the fire, miss, that's where the smoke's blowing. She gave him 2 coins for his words and left before sunrise. The rifleman appeared again on the 3rd night. No sound, just a shape on the edge of her firelight, rifle across his back. Eliza didn't flinch. Thought you left, she said. He said nothing. She stirred the beans in her pot. You followed me this far. Might as well sit. He did. Slow. Careful. Like he hadn't decided whether this was the end of the trail or not. I know who he is now, she said. Still silence. Kincaid. Took my father's land while we buried him. Said we hadn't filed proper claim. Then sent men back a week later. Wanted the well. When Ma refused, she trailed off. Stirred again. Burned it all. Said it was trespassing to resist. Sheriff turned his back. So I ran. She didn't say what came after. She didn't need to. The man watched the fire. His eyes hadn't changed, but something behind them had hardened. What's your name? She asked suddenly. A pause. Then, in a voice like gravel scraping wind, Kane. That was all. Kane. They rode together at dawn. Didn't speak much. Didn't need to. When they stopped to water the horses, she offered him jerky. He took it. When her saddle blanket slipped, he fixed it without a word. It wasn't friendship. It was something older. Like 2 wolves walking the same scent trail, neither sure which one had been wounded worse. Sundown Fork sat in the basin of 3 hills, surrounded by cottonwoods and white rocks. The land meeting was loud. Dozens of wagons, horses, rifles on every hip. Men in fine coats shook hands while laborers looked on from behind fence lines. Eliza walked through the crowd like a ghost, eyes down, listening. She heard Kincaid before she saw him. Water rights are about survival, gentlemen. That's why we register, why we invest. The land picks winners and losers, but the ledger seals it. He stood tall on a platform, sun bouncing off his silver belt buckle. His face was older than she remembered from the papers, lined deep, proud, smug in the way only a man with law on his side could be. She stepped closer. Kane was nowhere in sight. Maybe that was the plan. Kincaid turned toward the crowd. We're offering final terms for the remaining parcels. Fair price. Last chance. A rancher beside her leaned over. You sell now, or the drought makes you. Kincaid nodded to a man with a ledger. Begin the rolls. That's when Eliza stepped up, real quiet, right to the front, and said, My name's Eliza Granger. The crowd hushed. Kincaid paused, one eyebrow cocked. You've got no claim here. No, she said. You took it. He stared a moment, then laughed. You come all this way for a grudge, girl. Let me guess, looking to make a scene? Shoot me in the middle of a meeting. No, she said, and pulled the folded sketch from her coat. Held it up. This woman, she said, voice steady. You remember her? He frowned, stepped closer, then paled. His eyes flicked to the hills. Not fear, recognition. Kane, he muttered. A single shot rang out. Not from Eliza. From the ridge. The ledger flew from the clerk's hand in a spray of ink and paper. Then nothing. No chaos. No panic. Just a slow understanding in the crowd that something old and unforgiven had come to collect. Kincaid backed up. I didn't. I never laid a hand on her. Eliza stepped forward, the pistol drawn but still at her side. You stole her land. Watched her die poor. And when the next family settled it, you sent men to burn it again. His voice cracked. You don't have proof. She looked him in the eye. I don't need it. Behind her, another sound, a dozen boots. Ranchers stepping back, watching, letting it happen. Kane appeared from the trees. Rifle slung. Eyes locked on Kincaid. He didn't raise it again. Didn't have to. Kincaid fell to his knees. Not from a bullet. From knowing it was over. Later, when the meeting broke and the riders scattered, Eliza sat on the edge of a dry well. The sun was high. Her hands were empty, but something inside had gone still. Kane stood nearby. She didn't speak. He didn't either. But when she got to her feet and started walking, back west, toward the land no one wanted, he followed. Not to lead, not to guide, just to walk beside her. Some things didn't need to be said, and some names didn't need to be written down. Not anymore. The wind picked up again as they rode west, pushing dry leaves across the prairie like restless thoughts. No words passed between them. None were needed. Not after Sundown Fork. Kane rode slightly behind her, just as he always did, close enough to be known, far enough to vanish if the world turned cruel again. They passed the bones of old towns, burned shingles half buried in dust, a rusted weather vane still creaking on one bent nail. The land bore its scars quiet-like, same as they did. They reached what used to be the Granger place by dusk. No sign it was ever a home now, just the old chimney still standing, a single stone wall blackened with soot. Eliza dismounted and walked slowly toward it, her boots pressed through brittle stalks of grass that had grown wild in the years since. Kane stayed by the horses. She touched the wall, not gently, like testing a wound long closed. It was here, where her father planted the peach tree, where her mother sang while drawing water, where she learned to shoot, not for game, but for warning, where it all ended in fire. She closed her eyes and remembered the woman in the sketch, the one Kane had drawn. She wasn't looking to bring it all back. That was gone. But she wasn't leaving it behind either. She turned and called to him. "Come see." He walked over, boots silent in the dirt, stood beside her. "This was my kitchen," she said. He nodded. She pointed. "Barn was over there. And that ridge, Pa used to say you could see the whole world from it." Kane looked out, and then, for the first time, he smiled. It was small, ghost-thin, but real. Eliza bent down and pulled a flat stone from the earth, turned it over. Underneath, a sprout, pale green, clinging to life in the shadow of ruin. She brushed the dirt off, careful. "Not everything burned," she said. Kane looked at the sprout, then at her. They stayed that night, under the stars. No tent, just saddle blankets, the chimney for a windbreak, and the horses tied to what was left of the porch rail. Eliza didn't sleep much. She listened to the wind and the breath of the animals, and Kane's soft movements as he fed the fire. Somewhere near midnight, he spoke. Just one word. "Tomorrow." She looked over, saw in his face what he meant. Not a plan, not a plea, just a question, what now? She watched the flames for a long moment, then said, "We build." At dawn, they started clearing the stones. Not because they'd build a house today, but because the past needed to be moved, piece by piece, before the next thing could stand. Kane didn't talk, just worked beside her, quiet as always. And when Eliza paused, looking down at her raw hands, she saw it. A fresh cut on his knuckle, bleeding into the dust. She tore a strip from her shirt and tied it without asking. He didn't thank her. He didn't have to. A week later, the first post went in. Just one. No roof yet. No walls. But when a traveler passed by on the road, they slowed, tipped their hat, nodded at the post. Eliza didn't speak, but her spine straightened a little more. By summer's end, there'd be more posts. A fence. Maybe a lean-to. Maybe others would come. Folks who'd lost things too. Looking for dirt that still remembered names. And if they did, Kane would be there, watching from the ridge, rifle in hand. Silent, but never gone. They say some nights you can see two riders at the edge of the canyon. One with long hair, blowing in the wind. The other with eyes sharp as cold iron, always watching the tree line. They don't talk. They just ride. The land remembers them, and the fire never found them again.